Hey everybody, it's Wednesday in Conway, South Carolina. Well, come to think of it, it's probably Wednesday everywhere, isn't it? Well, maybe not. Maybe in Australia it could be Thursday. Anyway, welcome to Dentists in the Know. This is Humpday Happy Hour, and this is your backstage pass for current trends, politics, and education in the dental world. It is live. And it is over a cocktail. This is like my new favorite possession. This beautiful little Dentists in the Know cooler cup. It keeps my cold drinks cold and it keeps my hot drinks hot. It is the smartest of cups you will ever meet. Anyway, I am joined, as always, by two of my best friends in the world, two great dentists and colleagues, Dr. Jennifer Bell and Dr. Chad Duplantis. We are all educators, we are all dentists, and we are all business owners. And you know what our job is? It's to bring all of you in the know. And it's our pleasure to be together again 2 weeks in a row. How exciting. And guys, how you doing? Welcome. Good to see you.
It is really good when we're here for 2 weeks in a row, isn't it?
I know.
It's like good to be seen. Now. Good to be seen.
Is it?
It is.
So what's happening, guys? What's going on in the world of let's start with JB. What's going on in your world?
Okay, I'm gonna get on a soapbox. Are we ready? I know you both have experience in this, so you're gonna lean right into this. And actually, our guests may have experience with this as well. You've done remodels, maybe fresh construction. Yeah?
You're joking, right?
Maybe mostly recently. I'm just hypothetically, you've done stuff like that, right?
A little bit.
Right. And all I can do during the entire process is put it back in my own comprehension of I'm a general dentist. I coordinate all the things. I make all the things happen. The specialists move and breathe because I've dictated our path forward. Not because I'm more intelligent than they are, but because I've come up with the plan, the patient has agreed to the plan, and we're all cohesively moving in the same direction.
I think I know where you're going with this, JB.
And then there's construction, right? And you falsely assume the same thing. Someone's come up with a plan, we're all cohesively moving forward, but there's also no GP of construction that I could go to and say, okay, now this is your problem. I don't want to hear from anybody. I just want you to make all the magic happen. And
isn't that where the term general contractor came from?
Yeah, I do think that there are different interpretations of that term. And then when you get multiple contractors involved, because you've got different scopes of the project in which don't fall within the parameters of the GC. I just, all I can keep doing is putting it back into my own level of interpretation to say, this is really challenging. And I wish there was a way I could solve this because it's frustrating on this end, especially when I do this in a medical capacity where I own the overall vision. Once the patient and I have agreed on a path forward, I very much own that process. And I am the quarterback talking to the labs, talking to the specialists, and they all have their own domain, but we're all coming together for a cohesive outcome. And yeah. So, and I know you've sort of experienced the same recently, Jeff, I think, right?
Well, I don't understand that either, because somebody always has to assume the role of point guard,
right?
In any project. And, that's where the term general contractor comes from. They should be responsible for all the subs. But I mean, I'll tell you, recently we've had it where, there was a conversation between architect, general contractor, and the millwork person, because the millwork person said, well, we weren't given any direction about which pieces we were supposed to make and which ones we weren't. And that's my job. How? I mean, I'm supposed to go in there and be on the site every day. So I feel the pain that you're feeling, but like you, I don't understand how that even happens. It's
all I
somebody's
can
gotta
say
be.
is I'm either asking grace on our end, right? Like stop making us have to hold up to a standard that no one else is doing, or let's get on the same page, construction people. Can we? Can we
We
just get on
kind
the
of
same
like
page?
that, though. I think. I mean,
I
we
love
like
it.
having
I don't
that
want to give it
control.
up. I'm a bit
Right.
of a
I don't
control freak.
either.
No.
Yeah.
I don't want to give it up.
I don't think our patients want us to
No,
give that up.
I don't think
Right?
so either.
That's why they come to us, because
Yeah.
they have somebody that will say, I got you.
Yeah.
Right? And no matter what happens, you come to me and I'll get it figured out. That's why they come to people like us. That's the difference between us and, I hate to say it, corporate.
Yeah. Don't you think, and eventually we'll let Chad on the program, but don't you think this is actually a great conversation for this evening, because both you and our guest do a lot of more medical type treatment. Like it starts to encroach into that world. And I do wish that there was a better, like in my community, it is not easy for me to say, okay, patient, you should follow up with your pediatrician. You should follow up with your ENT. You should go get a sleep study. Like I can't order any of those things. I can't facilitate that process. I don't have a communication tool other than writing a letter to the pediatrician. Like I wish I could quarterback more of the collective case with all the providers, not just within our realm, right? But also within medical, or, I mean, if it were optometry, I guess I would want to. If their dog was attached to their shoulder, I guess I'd want to cooperate with the veterinarian too. Like whatever that cooperative requirement would require, right?
Yeah. So I failed to mention this in the intro. Tonight's show, by the way, is sponsored by our educational partners at Align iTero. And our guest tonight really will have a lot to add to this conversation. Dr. Ho-Fatt is, like me, has always been interested in interceptive orthodontics, implemented that early in her career, became part of her treatment philosophy, not just orthodontics, but orthopedics, and in a way that we can really alter the growth and development forever in a way that prevents diseases of adulthood. And but I'm sure that she will agree. I'll be curious to hear her input on this. But that whole thing of collaboration in the community, that certainly doesn't happen overnight. That's something that we continue to work on. It's not like you can just write all these referrals and everybody's like, oh yeah, that's Advanced Sleep and TMJ Centers. That's Dr. Horowitz. That's a process of just living that life and just churning away at it, good or bad, and just putting out those follow-up notes and communicating with physicians like you are one of them. And eventually they start to see that you are one of them. And that's when the referrals start coming back. It's not something that in any community anybody can really go out and do that. But to your original point of, this contracting world, that's the world that they live in already. It's, they're not really going beyond their typical scope of practice. So,
Hey, Chad, how are you?
Chatty,
Oh,
me
hey.
laddie.
How y'all doing? Good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah.
inviting me to
Well,
the show.
it's his last show.
Glad to be a guest tonight.
So
Hey, JB, are you talking about your pool, your practice, or a patient?
my backyard.
So I actually have a similar story, and I'm going to ask you all about this because this just happened today. So we're remodeling our whole office.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. And so when you remodel, the office, we've gone through carpet, we've gone through paint, we've gone through tile, we've gone through flooring. And of course, my business partner and I, we're at the flooring store. We do care what it looks like, but the first thing we're doing is we're feeling it. We're making sure there's not a lot of rigidity because the composite and all the crap gets caught in it and starts to look black and it starts to look nasty. So we nail down a flooring, we nail down a carpet, we nail down everything, and we nail down. We want to do solid surface countertops in the sterilization area. So we nail down. We have this designer that comes in, and we picked a level whatever quartz. Well, let's say we picked level 1, or is what we were allotted on our budget. She goes, "Oh, I've got a box in my car. Let me go grab it." So she goes and grabs it. She brings it in, and she's like, "This is in your budget." And so she shows it to us, and we fall in love with this quartz. All right. We're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do this quartz." So we pick this quartz, and everything in the sterilization area revolves around this quartz. So then the contractor comes back and says, "That's like 5 levels above what you were allotted." And we're like, "Dude, she had our budget. She had I was pissed, and I still kind of am. But she had our budget. She had everything. And she goes 5 levels beyond. All right. So now we got to repick a quartz." And I'm like, "I want this one." Well, that's going to be an extra X $1,000. And part of me takes a step back as a practitioner and is like, I don't give a patient a choice between Emax, zirconia. I'm supposed to be the one that chooses for the patient, and I set the fee, and it's going to be what will work best for that patient in their mouth. I would be mortified if I came back to a patient and said, "You know what? We chose to go with Emax, and it's 5 times more than the crap that I was going to put in there. Are you willing to pay $7,000 for that crown versus $1,200? And I would never do that. And I don't do that in my practice. It's just a gross analogy, but it just really pissed me off today, when we were going through this. And it's just so many little things. And it's like, "Oh, you want that base plate? That base plate's going to be X amount more. And it's going to take, Jeff, I'm sorry, 6 to 8 weeks longer to get, And it's like every little thing is just so freaking frustrating. So I get your pain.
Wait, you wanted electric hand pieces and not hand cranked?
Yeah.
We only allotted for hand cranking.
Wait, you didn't. Here's
the sad part.
I quoted you a handmade composite crown.
Yeah.
I was just going to free shape it.
Yeah.
But I decided to make porcelain, so it's 10X.
It would get the job done, but
here's kudos to our dental industry and specifically our AADA partners. The hand pieces, the delivery units, all of that's going to be last. You know why? Because that's predictable delivery and predictable pricing.
Yeah.
We know what we're getting. We were given several options, and we know how long it's going to take to get them. That's going to go in last because that's the most predictable piece of this puzzle. So kudos to our dental industry partners, Midwest, Atlanta, Getsy, Nashville. They get it. It's the other contractors in the world. Oh my gosh. And then we have these guys coming in. I'll tell you this real quick. This will be the last little piece of this puzzle. These guys that are designing our cabinetry and the sterilization, this is actually kind of a sweet story, but these guys come in and they are so on top of it, and they're measuring, and they're going to do this and do that. And then I look at their hats, and their hats, instead of saying Blank's design service, their hats and their shirts all say Blank's Dzing's services. And I don't think they ever realized that their stuff came back from the printer with the wrong spelling. And God bless them. They were so nice and so sweet and so proud of their uniforms. I didn't have the heart to say a damn thing, but I was like, oh my gosh, what am I getting? And they've done the best job.
Yeah.
They've done the best job.
No regrets. Not even one single letter.
No regrets.
No regrets. So sorry. I digress.
It's the first half of the show. You're allowed.
Yeah. No, I think it was great conversation. I mean, this is like a whole topic for another show. Maybe to even have like one of our AADA partners and their design team come on and kind of talk about the renovation process. And because, Lord knows I've done this a couple of times now, and I have absolutely had the shittiest experience this go around. And so it's not that I'm that much wiser, just new crap happened this time that I just wasn't prepared for. So what a great topic. But anyway, we have a terrific guest tonight. As I said, iTero is our educational partner, and they've sponsored this show, and also our amazing guest that is on, Dr. Andrea Ho-Fatt. And we're going to get to her as soon as JB gives us the news, if she agrees.
This time.
Okay.
I'm
knock us down,
share.
JB.
All right, you got it. Well, as the boys often joke, my news can sometimes be a little bit of a downer. I'm a realist. Let's be fair. Like I'm going to tell you the highs and the lows, and then maybe somewhere in between. So let's try to get a good cadence here. We're going to start with the low first, and hopefully we end on a high. I don't know. It's the middle of the summer. Like finding dental news at this time of the year is actually pretty akin to pulling teeth. So bear with me on that as well. The government is very busy worrying about elections and all the things. So they're not actually actively working on much legislation, which, means there's just not a ton going on. But let's talk about a few things that have come out. So I think you're going to find this super interesting because I had a patient in the office the other day that asked me if I would recommend my kids to go to dental school. Maybe you have your own opinion. Maybe you would say, yes, it's the greatest profession in the world. I would love to do that. And I said to her at the time, I said, look, I think we make a fair living. I don't think we make a crazy living, particularly if you're a one doc shop, and you're just doing dentistry every day. You're a widget maker and there's only so much you can produce. But the debt that you have to take to then earn that honest living, I think is kind of hitting a precipice at which the math doesn't make much sense. And she said, that's funny. I had an ER doc say the same thing, except he said he wouldn't send his kid to dental school or medical school. He would send his kid to dental school. So I think we're all kind of trying to figure out what the next right step would be for our own offspring. Because historically speaking, many of the professions that we're in are legacy professions. A good number of my classmates were legacy dentists. Their parents, grandparents, et cetera, were dentists, and it was kind of a family trade. All right. Well, there was some data that came out not that long ago, within the last couple of weeks, that validated my own suspicion. Dentists have the worst debt to income ratio currently in the professional marketplace for medical professionals. So let's talk about this. In 2017, dentists had a student debt of around $300,000 and an income of $152,000, which was a debt to income ratio of about 2. In 2022, dentists had an educational loan of around $286,000 with an income of about $182,000. So around a 1.57. So it has improved a little bit, although the recent statistics coming out from the ADA may make that number not so great. On the flip side, physicians in 2017 had $180,000 of student debt. So compared to the average dental student at that time at $308,000, but their average income was closer to $204,000 as compared $152,000 with medical or with dentists. Optometrists, pharmacists, and veterinarians fall somewhere kind of in between. And then the recent statistics that came out of the ADA of looking at salaries for dentists saw its first drop ever back in the spring of 2024, where the average income for dentists in the US had dropped by a small percentage point. So if the debt is continuing to go up and the income is at least sort of leveled off or potentially having a small decrease, something has to give. And I think this is going to continue to build the argument and the case for the cost of dental school education commensurate with what you can actually earn as a professional. And it is a cautionary tale for those young dentists that are considering going into dental school. I think you have to do the math. I think you really have to look at what it's going to cost you to obtain this very unique professional skill set, and what you might be able to obtain as an income for the next 30 or 40 years. And what you can't do is then decide 5, 8 years into that profession that you don't like it anymore. At somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 in debt, that's no longer an option for individuals who maybe realize it's not the right path forward. So obviously, this is statistics that will continue to sort of materialize over time, but dentists were named as the worst debt to income ratio for medical professionals. Yay. All right. Another piece of information. This is a little softer on the topics. There is an action alert for you to reach out to your legislative individuals on the federal level, your senators and your House of Representatives, to let them know that you do support, if you do, a bill that would allow HSA dollars to be spent for over-the-counter oral health products. That would include toothbrushes, actual oral probiotics, not gut probiotics, toothpastes, oral health aids, electric toothbrushes, water picks, etc. All the things that you recommend or sell in your practices would then be eligible for HSA reimbursement. There is a call to action. It is HR 8599 that would amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to allow the over-the-counter products to now be a reimbursable expense through HSA and FSA. The deadline for this response is coming up in the next couple of weeks. So be sure to go ahead and reach out to your lawmakers to let them know and have your voice heard. The last interesting piece of information that we're going to share with you this evening, I think is kind of a nice dovetail, if you will, to use an amalgam preparation design. On the conversation that we had last week talking about the Chevron Act and how the Supreme Court had sort of not overturned it, but created a new stance on the Chevron Act, and that government agencies in the US would not have free reign to just legislate essentially from their regulatory entities. Well, not just 1 week later, here we are discussing the fact that the NIH is now looking at reconfiguring its entire department, going from 22 different groups down to, 27 different institutes down to 15, and clustering those institutes under one umbrella. So for instance, dental health falls under the National Institute of Dental and Craniofacial Research. We would then be lumped under the Institute of Neuroscience and Brain Research, which there's not one word in there that has anything to do with oral health, but so be it. There's obviously concern that these entities would sort of get lumped in and then lose budget, lose research opportunities for advancement, for techniques, procedures, and materials, that oral health and craniofacial health wouldn't get the same attention, kind of being lumped in under a larger conglomerate. So the ADA, along with 222 other organizations, have come out in opposition of this consolidated effort. I'd like to learn a little bit more. Certainly, I'd love to see it on a fiduciary level responsibility to see if this will actually save the taxpayer dollars. And if so, if they can be more nimble and responsive to issues, and maybe this makes sense. But it also does seem oddly coincidental that this is on the heels of a Supreme Court decision to start changing the way that these government regulatory agencies can sort of create law and regulate from their own entities. So maybe coincidence, maybe not, but certainly worth the discussion. If you want more information, there's a lot more available on the ADA's website, and you can certainly participate in a coalition letter to let your voice be heard. There is some significant concern about the fact that this isn't an open forum for debate. It looks like if this were to go forward, there may be no opportunity for community involvement or to voice your concerns. So many of the organizations are putting pen to paper to get that information out. And with that, that's the news.
I knew that. You see how I was quick on the trigger
Yeah, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, because I knew where
so
you were going.
uncomfortable
I knew
up here
that
by
this was gonna
myself.
be a transition. We've kept our guests waiting extra long, although you've now given me another topic that we need to pursue for another show, which are
is
tax concerns for the general dentist. Actually, I have a very close friend in the dental profession right now going through a use tax audit because South Carolina has, changed the rule in that if a laboratory product does not replace a human structure, then it now is subject to use tax. So that, pardon me, sleep appliances, night guards, they are going after her for every lab expense that she had that was not a crown or a removable partial denture. So stay tuned for that. I'm actually talking with her. I know you'll be all over this, JB.
Let's do it. I definitely want to.
What a scam. What an absolute scam. And this poor woman who, like me, does a lot of sleep is now subject to, the South Carolina DOT. Not DOT, excuse me.
DOR.
Exactly. The Department of
Not
Revenue.
a highway, taxes.
No, it's not a highway. It's not a game.
It's not.
Life is a highway.
Yeah.
Oh,
All night long. All right, JV, introduce our guest.
Are you ready?
Yeah, bring her on.
Guys, I'm really excited to bring on a friend. I think I can call her a friend. Maybe she wouldn't call me a friend, but I would call her a friend. Dr. Andrea Ho-Fatt
Thank you for being a friend.
Thank you. That's right. Is joining us tonight from Canada, which means the majority of my news was super boring and uninteresting to her, but they're having their own problems up there with some national dental reimbursement stuff. So maybe we can dig into that a little bit because I definitely think that there's been some updates in that area. But we're also going to talk about her journey as a general dentist who's really found an amazing niche in orthodontics, in sleep dentistry, and looking at whole patient treatment, which I know is Jeff's real sweet spot, and how we take patients from youth to adult and prepare them along the journey for the best successful outcome. She's also an incredible clinician for her patients. She's an active member of the Align GP Advisory Board. We serve along together with the opportunity to provide feedback to a very large organization that is often criticized in public forum, but they take the time out of their schedule, many of the corporate individuals that are involved there, to spend time to get to hear from clinicians that are using their products and trying to do the best for their patients, dealing with the compression of insurance, dealing with the compression of the international regulatory issues, dealing with inflationary issues in the economy, blah, 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 blah. And there is Align wanting to hear so that they can best implement products and services that will meet the need of both the patient and the clinician and kind of have this really cohesive relationship. So it is absolutely my honor to have her here tonight to talk about all the things that we've just discussed and maybe inspire a little bit of passion for some of our listeners that have been thinking about pursuing more of a subspecialty in the world of sleep, orthodontics, and pediatric care. So thank you, Andrea. So glad you're here.
Yes, I'm thrilled to be here. This is my first time on a podcast, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that I didn't realize that there was video. I've only listened to you guys like on my I thought it was just I thought it was just audio. I thought, oh, I have to do my hair. And
we appreciate the downloads. I mean, nonetheless.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I usually listen to podcasts like walking my dog, and I was actually thrilled. Like, this is on video. This is great. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. So
do you have any we've now, before we dive deep into your Align journey, we've now covered construction,
yes,
remodeling,
yes,
debt to income ratio, regulatory issues. Any feedback on
all
any
of
of this?
that.
And Canada has had their own recent.
I've experienced all of that. So I'm kind of knee deep in renovations myself with contractors. And interesting enough, I'm renovating my office and renovating my house at the same time.
At the same time.
Why would I do
Renovating
that?
your house.
Yeah, renovating my house and my office with the same contractor too. Like it's all happening at the same time. And I have to say, so I did a huge remodel, like again in my entire practice, less than 2 years ago, and we've already run out of space, so I have to like redo it to fit all my employees under one roof. Anyway, the difference is when I actually feel okay to leave and delegate like my office manager to do things with, like to oversee some of the contractors and what needs to be done. But when it comes to my house, like I have to do all that. It's like, oh, I have to make the decisions and I have to pack all the boxes and I don't get to delegate as much as I could in my office. So
yeah. And don't you feel like at some point you're just like, I'm out of decisions for today. Like I can't physically make any more decisions.
Everything is just okay. When you're talking about the, liking that granite and at some point I'm just like, whatever. To me, it's like, it's a countertop. It's fine. So,
it's fine. Just put it in. Deal with it later.
Just like, oh, I can't. Yeah, it's
I
fine.
have absolutely felt that too, like the whatever moment where like, at this point, you know what? Just, just put some laminate. I don't give a
yes.
I'll replace the laminate again.
Yeah.
Brian said something to me mid renovation, and he said, I might be misquoting, but I think it was Jeff Bezos that said many of his decisions, he says, is it a two-way door or a one-way door? If it's a one-way door, then I know the gravity of the decision is I really have to make it right the first time. If it's a two-way door, I can always go back through and change my mind. So countertops, I would put in a two-way door. Like you don't want to double pay for countertops, but at the end of the day, if in 3 years you decide you hate the countertops, it's a two-way door. You can go back. Now, the building and the land that you purchased to put on it does start to become a one-way door. Like it becomes a cost prohibitive endeavor to just jump over to the next piece of land. And that has actually freed me up quite a bit. Like I don't feel bad about the decisions anymore because I'm like, it's a two-way door. It's fine. We'll be fine. We can always go back and solve this
a one-way
later.
door. Sorry.
What? You only have one way?
To me are a one-way door.
Chad, that's just so much pressure.
The whole thing is so much pressure. I mean, paint is a two-way door.
Yeah.
I can paint that sumbitch over and over again. Countertops, I don't want to rip them out. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with dust. I don't want to deal with mess. Just get it done. Tile, one-way door. Carpet, two-way door. I could do less. I could care less.
But define your doors and then lean in and spend the time on the things that matter, and the rest you just be like, whatever.
In my personal home,
just put the countertop in. I don't care.
In my personal home, I'm one and done. I do not remodel. I move. I can't. I can't deal with it in my personal home. I can paint. That's 2 ways. Remodeling, tearing stuff up, I'm done. Count me out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ask me that in 2 months.
I will. We'll have you back on.
We may need an update.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about your one-way and your two-way doors?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Ask me
and
later.
Your decisions of renovating everything in your life simultaneously.
And
all right, so I'm going to transition this because
okay. Go. You started
it. If we're talking about one-way and two-way door, and honestly, I want to get to the expertise of this guest. Okay. And so when you talk about one-way or two-way doors, if you think about it, we have opportunities when we see children that we can make decisions that are actually two-way doors, right?
Yeah.
At that point, when you let a child go through adolescence and miss everything that will affect their growth and development, from that point on, it is a one-way door, right? There is, you've only got one way to go. And so with interceptive care, I've always felt like, you could make the wrong decision, but you're not going to hurt them in any way. You may be you can change paths at that point. You may even say, maybe I didn't need to do that, but did I hurt them in any way? Absolutely not. And you created a situation where there was more good than bad. So tell me your journey as a general dentist and wanting to get into orthodontics and particularly interceptive orthodontics, and then the impact that it had on your practice.
Yeah. So I think I share similar journeys with people in our space. We went to dental school, and when I went to dental school like 23 years ago, what I learned in orthodontics was very limited. And I thought leaving as a graduate, I could do weekend courses in endo or prost or anything else, but really orthodontics, I did not feel comfortable. I did not feel like I was an expert. That had to go to the specialist. And I would refer all my patients to the local orthodontist around me. And more often than not, they would just go for braces for a couple of years and as a teenager. And, a lot of times they would ask me to do premolar extractions, which never sat well with me because I myself have had my 4 premolars removed when I was a teenager. And I didn't love that experience, even though I had no idea about airway or anything like that at that point. But I
would love to know what the percentage of people like us in this space that have had 4 bicuspid extraction are just
it does seem high.
That might be one of the reasons we're in this space.
It could be. We're looking for an alternative. So I started looking around, and I couldn't find it. And at the same time, as a young parent, I was having my own children, and that's when it really hits hard, right? Like when you're a parent, now you're in charge. Like it's not just like you're in charge of the well-being of this kid. And if your spouse is not a dentist, they're going to really rely on you to make the best decision. So at that point, I knew that I was seeing these mixed dentition kids, coming in with crossbites, either transverse or like AP problems. And I would send them to the orthodontist, and they were always put on this like monitoring program. They would just be seen like yearly, and I'd be like, what's happening to the kid, the parents? And they're like, we don't know, that we just get free ice cream every time we go there. And I love the orthodontist. And then they would go through their mixed dentition, hit their teenage years. And again, I would get that referral back for 4 premolar extractions. And I thought, this is insanity. So I decided to go get the education myself. And I was really lucky that in my area, like Toronto, Canada, I met Brock Rondo, and Brock Rondo is he's a general dentist like me, and he teaches comprehensive in early interceptive ortho, and that's how I kind of entered the ortho space. I was doing functional appliances for little kids. I had a lot of little kids in my practice because I myself had little kids. Mm-hmm. My husband's a family doctor, and we have a joint medical dental practice together. So all of his patients kind of from birth were kind of seeing us, our dental clinic, and they would most of our patients were shared. So we had a shared patient base, and had a really tiny practice that like under 1,000 patients, but majority of my patients I would say not majority, sorry, about 30%, which is kind of high for a general dentist, was really ortho for growing kids. I became an Invisalign provider kind of during that time, but that was all really just for adults asking to fix their aesthetics, nothing to do. I wasn't digital, and I did very few Invisalign cases. And it wasn't until like throughout that journey, I kind of fell into sleep medicine. When I say I fell, like a lot of us, we fall down that rabbit hole of sleep medicine. You learn a little bit about it, and you're like, oh my God, I need to know everything because there's so much. And so about 7 or 8 years ago, I started just taking so much continuing education, and this was adult sleep. And so maybe a few months into that journey, I had that aha moment where it's like, wait a second, like I'm doing functional appliances on kids wait, and these my adult sleep patients, wait, I can do this. I can help these children so they don't grow up to be these ethnic adults. And my practice kind of just exploded from that. I know you guys were talking about having a collaborative group with medical professionals. And a lot of people think it's because my husband's a family doctor that kind of helped me into that, that arena. But ironically, he's kind of the opposite. He's like, I don't want nepotism. I don't want to look like I'm just referring to my wife. So in Ontario, Canada, me as a dentist cannot refer to medical specialists. We can't, because with universal healthcare, the medical specialists can only get paid if they get referred to by a family doctor. So that has helped. But how I really got into sleep was that I had a patient. So I was going on my first sleep course, and it's kind of a funny story. Like, if you know anything about sleep, you can't take one course, like one weekend course, and know and be an expert. But I didn't know anything. So I told this patient, this patient came for a regular hygiene visit, and he said to me, oh, I just got diagnosed with sleep apnea, and I'm going to go see my sleep doctor in a couple of weeks to go over the results. And I had just registered for my very first weekend sleep course. And so I told him, you know what? You tell that sleep doctor that your dentist, will know how to fix you. And because I'm taking this course and I'm going to be an expert in sleep. And he did. He actually said that to that sleep physician. And it just so happened that that sleep doctor had just moved into the area, so my local area, and she was the co-director of a sleep clinic and he told her that, and she said, oh, I really let's set up a meeting. Let's do it. And I thought to myself, after that course, I don't know anything. So I need to take as many. So I did everything online, anything I could read. I did every YouTube video. Any online course. I canceled all my patients for weeks and just started doing as much sleep education as I could before my meeting with her. And really, after that, we had that preliminary meeting, I really felt like I was going to let her down if I didn't know, if I couldn't, back up what that patient originally said. So I fell into sleep medicine. I did, I would say, almost 200 hours of continuing in my first year of just sleep. Got my Diplomate with the AADSM. And I guess I impressed her because I was lucky enough to get into her sleep group and impress them with being able to, make appliances and show them what I could do. I was really fortunate to fall into that group, and since then I've had referrals more so from the medical side to me, not more than me to them. So that's kind of my sleep story.
So I have a question for you, and it's kind of a few fold. So bear with me for a second here. So your practice right now, your orthodontic practice, or what you're doing orthodontics on, is it mainly children or adults?
So presently, I'm a Diamond Plus provider, and it's just me and out of 6 operatories. So if you guys know the tier levels, that's kind of like I'm doing more Invisalign than the average orthodontist, which is a lot. So right now, I would say I have about 75% adults compared to my 25% growing kids. And those adults are everything. So just, I do like carrier motion appliances. So will change the AP a little bit on adults. I do a lot of smile architect cases with ortho restorative. But my first passion is children. So
the way I see it, and I'm not as versed in sleep, but I've learned so much through Jeff and through some of the people that we've had on the show and through the various courses that I've done. And as I would say, still, I consider myself an outsider looking in, but I also consider myself to be a lot more keen than most providers in noting some of these issues that can be problematic for people. And I think that a lot of practitioners, whether it be dentists or doctors in the adult phase, they treat the problem. And I say that very loosely. You treat a problem and you provide a quote unquote solution. But with kids, I find that we can treat the root cause, and we can provide not necessarily a solution to a problem, but create an outcome that's positive and provides a better quality of life for these people. So the second or third part of my question, I know I kind of went about this in a roundabout way, but there's a lot of people out there that are begging for answers as practitioners. What are some things that we can look for in kids, or in that mixed dentition? My favorite phrase is the ugly duckling phase of dentition development. But what are some things that we can look for, or what you look for, that we could potentially treat or push these kids in the right direction to treat, that a lot of us may miss, that could provide an impact on their life that's basically invaluable?
Yeah, I mean, for kids, for just as a general dentist, you're having kids through your practice, and I believe just looking past the teeth, like just looking past the teeth to like how big is their tongue, the tonsils, just even asking parents like, do they snore? We do pediatric screening questionnaires on children in our office. But even that, it's just crowding, things that can affect the airway, things that can affect sleep and in their growth and development. I'm a big believer in early treatment for anything in dentistry. There's very few things in dentistry that will correct on their own, and definitely orthodontics is part of that. I think where general dentists they sometimes get scared, and I know I was one of them before, was that you're scared to screw up a kid. You're like, ooh, I don't have enough knowledge to treat this child, because their face is not going to be the same as what you're seeing today as it is going to be tomorrow. They're unpredictable. They're going to have new teeth. And just like how Jeff said, when we're looking at these kids, you're really weighing the risks and benefits of treating early and treating late. And a lot of the times, or majority of the times, is that treating too late has such critical consequences, like that one-way, two-way door. Well, if you're treating early, usually the biggest risk is that you don't treat enough or you relapse later. And that just means another phase of ortho, and really when it comes down to it is cost or time and money, which I think a lot of parents would be gladly pay or choose that option if they knew what the consequence there could be, the risks of waiting too late, where it could be like extracting, you needing to have those 4 premolar extracted and have a risk of sleep disordered breathing later in life. So this is how I kind of, and parents really get it. Like they really understand when you lay it out for them. You lay it out, these risks and benefits of treating early and treating late. And like now I have parents seeking out early treatment. They want it, that they're looking for it. And even not to do with airway, sometimes they just don't want the ugly duckling phase. Like everyone wants to look, they're like, ooh, my kid's teeth are really crowded. I just don't like the looks of that. But then, you know, our job as practitioners is to tell them, well, it actually, you know, straighter teeth, even in the mixed dentition, is actually healthier than what not just for aesthetics.
So we rarely do this on this show, but I'm going to disagree with Jeff for a second here, because I think I know what he was trying to say. But what I want to say is that where I disagree with you, Jeff, is that I feel that interceptive phase is so much of a one-way door, because I think
missing it is a one-way door.
100%. It could be such a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, you look at a kid with a high vaulted palate, with a lot of crowding, with a thick tongue, you know, with an anterior open bite, with that nasally talk, with that really scrawny body that's just not thriving. And if you miss that, you've missed a humongous
100%.
opportunity in that child's life. And, you know, Jeff, I say I disagree with you because you're the one that taught me that. And then I hear this. And so I think this is something that comes up very often, at least it does in my practice. And this is one of the things that my business partner and I used to disagree upon until I started sharing my thoughts with him. But I'd just like to have a little bit of a roundtable here, because I think it's so important that we discuss, how do we share with parents the necessity for that phase 1 or that interceptive orthodontic phase? Because so many parents are thinking, oh, my child's too young. You know, I'm not ready for it. I didn't have braces till I was 13. I don't need them. You know, and here we are telling these kids right after they've lost all of their, you know, after they've, you know, had their first permanent molar in their mouth, you're like, hey, I really want you to see an orthodontist, or I think we need to start talking about orthodontics. So how do we express the need for that interceptive phase? And what are some things that you say that can help other practitioners along to prove the value in that?
So I feel that it's not very difficult to get parents not just interested, but actually wanting it. So I think early treatment is, when I talk about that philosophy to most parents, I very rarely have pushback. It's more that it has not been discussed with them. It hasn't been, like, the option wasn't given to them. Usually when I say, oh, we can do Invisalign on a 6-year-old, they're like, we can? That's amazing. It's not a hard sell. I think parents, they want the best for their kids. And if you just explain to them, we can start making the face fit the teeth instead of pulling out the teeth and shrinking the face. It just makes sense. They don't want parts of their kids' bodies removed.
That's it. That's what you say. That's the thing, you know, and that's it. It's not hard for you because you believe it, you know, but I think a lot of dentists, and I've heard this from a number of dentists, that they struggle with stressing that first phase, and, you know, and so I think that's it. You believe it. You have a great analogy. I always say that at this age, the bones and the structures are like clay. We can move things where we want them to, and start improving development versus just moving teeth around, you know? And so that's one of the things that I say, and I'd agree. It's not a hard sell in my practice either, but you know, there's some people that really have a hard time, you know, convincing parents, but I think it has a lot to say about who you are as a practitioner and the loyalty that you have amongst your patient base. So,
well, the other piece of that, Chad, is this, that there are so many options
hi, Jeff.
out there now. What's that?
Hi, Jeff.
Hi. Am I not talking? Can you not hear me?
I was just like, I was on my soapbox. Sorry, dude.
I know you are. That's good though. No, I love it because, you know, I mean, this is what we preach to all the general dentists out there, that this can become such a robust piece of any practice. But the point that I was going to make is that there's so many options out there now that it's not just about fixed braces. I mean, parents are blown away when they find out, as Andrea said, that we can do Invisalign. They have a product called Invisalign First, and we have been using that for arch development now for a while. We can change jaw positions. We can sometimes overcome the need for tonsillectomy. You know, when you have that kid who, you know, maybe the tonsil should come out, maybe they shouldn't, maybe you're just trying to get them through a year or two until adolescence when they will shrink, but not paying attention to that at all, and not paying attention to swallowing habits and things like that. You know, Align has addressed a lot of the concerns about fixed orthodontic therapies. And they've done so in a way that there's something for really every child out there. So we've done a ton of Invisalign First. I know, Andrea, you've done a bunch of this, but in addition to that, they've also done their research on palatal expansion as well. Maybe you can talk to that a little bit.
Yeah. So Invisalign Palatal Expander, it was just released last year. And I was lucky enough to be on one of the first trials for that. The Invisalign Palatal Expander, so it's a 3D printed product and it's removable. And for those of us GPs that have done conventional palatal expansion, usually it's with either fixed cemented hyrax where you're cementing it in, you're using a screw to turn, and for rapid palatal expansion, or you're doing a removable like screw with a jack screw in the middle and you remove it. And I mean, those are the tried and true conventional expanders to get skeletal expansion, right? So Invisalign First, it's supposed to only do arch development, like move the teeth within the bone. But now IPE, Invisalign Palatal Expander, actually we're seeing skeletal expansion with a very comfortable, removable, 3D printed appliance. So we've been doing that. We're still doing a few conventional expanders as well, because there are some very specific criteria that you need to use with IPE. But the results and the parents, my staff, they're just blown away with the ease of use with IPE. I just saw one of my IPE patients, an 8-year-old, just today, and the mom was, because she had palatal expansion when she was younger, and I didn't realize how much anxiety that a parent has over turning the screw until I gave them an option not to do it. She said, I thought in my head that what if I would forget, or what if I didn't turn it enough? And this is anxiety that a lot of parents they have about these expanders that just haven't been told to dentists in the past until they had a different option. So that alone, I feel that a lot of parents would gravitate to this new expander. But where I feel that it's really going to change the field is that general dentists who are not like me and you, Jeff, who are not used to doing kind of phase 1 expanders, kind of scared, they may be more like apt to try to do expansion on their own patients and maybe not wait, because these kids are in their practice already. They have the 6 and 7 year olds in their practice. They're seeing this, they could see a crossbite, and these kids may not have to wait. Maybe they would be able to get the treatment early, which I'm really excited about.
Does digital scanning with that help that conversation? Help me walk through the educational piece. Patient walks in, you note the crossbite or some other clinical condition that would at least open the door for early interceptive ortho and expansion. Are you leveraging scanning technology how are you communicating that to them in a concept that's incredibly difficult for parents to understand?
Yeah, 100%. Like scanning has really, it has changed my practice, my career, my life, really. like the scanner. So we scan every patient. So when I say we scan every patient, we really scan every patient. As soon as that scanner tip can fit into the kid's mouth, usually around 2.5, 3 years old, we're scanning, we're always scanning the palates, and it's really nice and easy to show a parent. You can show them that vaulted palate. You can show them that, the roof of your mouth is the floor of your nose, and you can actually see that very clearly on a scan. It's very easy to show that to parents. I don't even know what I did when I wasn't digital, like how I explain anything, like with just, your teeth are like this. And now we can say,
so true.
Yeah. Right. Like now we can say, baby teeth, you're supposed to have spaces here. You don't. You can see this tooth is like this. You're not going to have space for an adult tooth. The way the arches are together, this arch is, your mandible is a little bit like too far back. It'd be hard for breathing. This is all so easy, not just with the scanning technology to show them, but show them the progression. Like show them this isn't getting better, right? Like crossbite can't get better. So scanning regularly, it's really important. So I don't know what I would do without, I guess I did a lot before I had the scanner, but definitely the conversations are a lot easier.
100%.
Well, Andrea, thank you. Thank you for coming on tonight. Thank you for your insight. Hopefully many of our listeners, number one, will be inspired to maybe consider additional education in an area of dentistry that can be incredibly rewarding. I've watched Jeff's journey for years, and I've seen your journey for the last several. And there's one thing that resonates very consistently amongst the both of you, and that is how impactful every day of dentistry is for you and the lives you're changing. And when I do a DO composite, I don't get the same value add. Like I don't. They don't say I changed your life. They're more like, I hated being here. You're like, okay, great, thanks. So you guys are doing amazing work for your communities and for your patients. And for that, all of us are in awe and incredibly grateful. So thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
We loved it. DINKs, are we ready to walk away for another episode? 202 episodes?
Wow.
202.
202.
Hey, real quick, Andrea, you're going to be doing some education in Toronto, are you not? Do you want to plug that real quickly?
Oh yes, thank you. So I am hosting a mixed dentition course with clear aligners and Invisalign Palatal Expander. So that will be in Toronto, October 18th and 19th of this year at the Toronto Align Education Center. And there's a hands-on component, and we're really just trying to make general dentists feel comfortable using these new treatment options.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Well, Chad, why don't you close us out? And Andrea, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. This was amazing. Thank you.
So I'm going to close it out by saying this. If the tip of the iceberg is all that sunk the Titanic, we just sunk. Because, folks, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, holy crap, we haven't even broached this subject the way that we need to. So I'm going to beg Andrea to come back for a part 2. I want to divide this into a part 1, part 2. And I'm serious as a heart attack. Like, I'm talking like we will email you tomorrow and set up part 2 in a month, because there is so much that we didn't get to. So if you
Chad,
would be
for our
willing
French
to do that,
Canadians, that would be part 2.
Yes.
Yeah, I would really, really like to do that. So expect
You'll see the remodel of this room.
That's right.
Yeah. And to our
No,
team,
we have to
please,
do 2 months, because that's what she said. Like, give me in 2 months to see how I actually feel about my situation.
Yeah, let's to our team, let's put part 1 of 2, because this is definitely a 2-part process. I think if there was a theme for tonight, it's one-way and two-way doors. And I think the biggest takeaway, and this is just, like I said, part 1, is that there's so much that we can see in kids that can really, really impact their life going forward. I know we've all seen something, and maybe we just didn't know what to do about it. We're so much more than tooth mechanics. We should be physicians of the oral cavity. Andrea, you're just doing a wonderful service. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show. And so to all of our clinicians out there, if you see something in kids, look into it further, make the appropriate referral. And I think maybe next time we'll focus on adults and a little bit more sleep. But thank you so much for watching tonight. We appreciate Andrea. We certainly appreciate Invisalign, iTero, and what they do. They are constantly innovating, constantly changing the way that we treat patients, and it's all for the better. Their digital technology, their orthodontic workflows, they're just such a trendsetter in dentistry, and we appreciate them for that. So thank you for being an educational partner. Thank you for being with us, Invisalign, iTero. Thank you again, Dr. Andrea Ho-Fatt, and we will definitely be back. All right. Thank y'all. Have a good evening.
Go find yourself a two-way door.
A two-way door. We want a two-way door.
I always want two-way doors.
And that wraps up another podcast for Dentists in the Know. On behalf of Dr. Jennifer Bell, Dr. Chad Duplantis, and myself, remember that we've got a great profession, so let's make it a great day, Dinks.